Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First off, a big welcome to Emily, Tori, and Chelsea from Braid Babes. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you
for having us.
So I know everyone listening right now is like, okay, Braid Babes on the Left of Greg show. What is this about? So I have a special actually kind of gift for those who watch the episode on YouTube. There's not as many viewers as there are listeners. So I figured I'd pull up real quick for all of you to see right here. I have had my hair braided before. That's me and my wife in Cabo San Lucas a couple of years ago, where there was I would call a significant amount of alcohol involved in that decision. And then getting that out the next morning before I traveled back to the United States, I was both laughing and crying.
I'm convinced that you've smoked more reefer than anybody I know to, first of all, have done that, and second of all, to bring it on the show today. Now, we have a very liberal non-drug testing policy at Arcadia, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, our company, we have a very, very strict no drug testing policy. We will.
I have that same picture on my desk, but I have your face cut out and my face superimposed next to your wife. So
that's good to know. So I want to start off. You got a bunch of questions for us that we're going to jump into today. Different things about safety and security and what you're doing. But Emily, I'd like to throw to you. Tell us a little bit about what Braid Babes is and what you girls do.
Yeah, so Braid Babes, we're mobile braiders. So we have a team in each of our cities. We're in Buffalo, Nashville, and Scottsdale. Our clients will book us for single appointments if they're, say, going on a date or attending a wedding. But then they'll also book us for their daughter's birthday or for a ladies' night with their friends or bachelorette party. And then we even will do the whole wedding group for bridal, which is really, really beautiful. We started in 2019 and we're planning to go national, city by city. And we just launched Scottsdale right now, so we're super excited about it.
Right, and we're huge fans, just so you know. We share a very close friend that talked about you guys when he first met you. We're huge fans, and I can't wait till you get to Little Gunnison, Colorado, or at least Denver, where we could drive up. My wife and I have a thing where each quarter we have to drive all the way to Montrose to get our mani and pedi. And then we make a damn day out of it because it's a couple-hour drive one way. And so this is a delivery service. You actually, Brian, I like your comment. They show up in your house alone and unafraid. But the reason that we wanted to talk to you folks today is because that doesn't mean that you're also showing up confident and competent in every instance. So our CEO, Shelley, generally asked the question, what keeps you up at night? And what was cool, Brian, is we got a whole page, a couple of pages of what keeps the Braid Babes up.
Yeah, so we're gonna throw to you guys to ask us questions, and to just know this is such a relevant, kind of topic to discuss, because not this many services and industries are going this route anyway, where people are getting a lot of in-home services. I mean, already obviously you have food delivery and all that kind of stuff is off the charts.
And laundry,
cleaning, laundry, now
dog
hair
walking.
braiding, dog, everything. So you've got people showing up. So I kind of look at it from two perspectives of one, the person hiring, someone to come into their home, right? They have their own concerns. And then two, obviously huge concerns for you girls and for anyone in that industry. You don't always know what you're showing up to. You're showing up to someone's house. So there could be a lot of things that could go catastrophically wrong. Now, most people are well-intentioned, and I'm sure most of the time everything is great. But how do we identify those situations where, hey, you know what, something seems a little off here? How do I avoid a catastrophic effect? Or event, and that's what Greg and I specialize in. So we just love it to throw it to you to ask the questions, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I don't know who wants to go first. You can volunteer, or Emily, I think you're kind of overall in charge, right? So maybe you assign it or you take it.
He sure is. I don't know. I think these two run the show these days, but yeah. And on the note of what keeps you up at night, I just wanted to add to that. Like, that's like the number one question you get as a founder. Everyone asks me what keeps you up at night, and this has always been my answer. I am sending braiders into strangers' homes, and all we need is the wrong person to realize that for $65 they can order a braider to their home, and that it scares the heck out of me, for sure. And I've always told Tori that too. I'm like, you know, our business could go to a $0 valuation with the snap of a finger. And I've always told her that. I'm like, it's a huge risk we have. You know, if we have a huge PR event of something terrible happening, this business will be done, you know. And so we want to really protect our breeders, protect the company.
Absolutely. And you know, just even having that concern, you're already starting off on the right foot, right? That's what we would say, all right, what is our main concern? It's our people. So you're already starting to develop that culture as you guys are I mean, I know you're established in a few cities, but you're going to be growing. And when I like same thing, I told my wife about this, she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Now she's like asking about like, hey, can we like have a franchise out here in San Diego or something? I was like, I'm just talking about this one thing. If you want to have a business conversation, I'll introduce you, but let's pump the brake. So I'd already say that one already. You're starting off on a good foot. What's our concern with our people? What do we need to focus on?
And I think being risk averse is smart, as long as you're being averse to the right risk. So it can't be just a general panacea of, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. That's why people quit business or don't start in the first place. The idea is that it's got to be measured and tempered against reality and against utility. You know, so I love that as well. That you're putting thought to it. And again, this isn't unprecedented. I think it's important. Our listeners are going to wonder, why are these females on? And my thing is, look, shut-ins and old folks and people that need an escort service have been ordering stuff like this for a long time. And they get their barber, for example, to come over, a house cleaner, or somebody to cook a meal and put some sandwiches in their fridge for the rest of the week. So what you came up, which is an ingenious, novel concept that hasn't been done before, but the process is an unprecedented, and that's where I think the magic is. So if you're listening right now and you've tuned in, listen for a while and get your yellow pad out, because we're probably going to tell you stuff that's going to make you safer at home or make your business safer as well.
Yeah, I love it.
So let's fire away. Let's go ahead with your first questions.
All right. So what we did is we asked our entire team. We have a team of about 60 in the company now. And so we asked them, like, hey, what scares you? And so we have these kind of scenarios. So we'll kind of start shooting scenarios at you.
Perfect.
So the first one, there was one time I had a male client who kept telling me how cool I was and kept asking to smoke together. It made me feel uncomfortable, but I finished the braids and never went back. He called and texted me every day for months. I just told my manager what was going on and I blocked him. He also told me that because of him, my braids would go viral and we would make it big, and then didn't let me use the photos I took.
Okay, so there you go. There's a lot already. People already.
First of all, I say anybody that saw Brian's photo earlier knows who this is. Emily is speaking directly about Brian, but go ahead, alter ego, Brian.
So that's a good thing, right? So one of the things you do is it's, you know, you're in an uncomfortable situation. So especially if someone is asking you questions or saying things and you feel uncomfortable, what's difficult to do in the moment is to try to come up with a way to like de-escalate it or change the subject, or I want to create a lie and say something. It's really tough to do in the moments. What you do is you prepare beforehand, right? So one of those things for something like this is the beauty of what you have is, one, it's a company and a professional service. So you kind of just put it all on that, like, hey, look, we have certain legal requirements. We have certain company policies that forbid us from doing that. So even if I wanted to, you know, I can't, because I might lose my job, and, you know, hey, I appreciate this, but like not quite, we're you know, losing my job. And so what that does is start to set a little bit of boundaries, right? And so once I have some boundaries established where I say these certain things about, here's how our procedures are. Hey, I'm required to maybe check in when it gets started, or you signed a waiver saying we can use your photos, or whatever it is. You stick to sort of that company policy, because now I have a script that I'm going to use every single time, whether it's a good, bad, normal, everyday situation, right? I have to know that stuff anyway. And once you establish those boundaries, you now sort of have a baseline here. So you drew a line in the sand. Now what you can do, normal person would go, oh, okay, and they then wouldn't cross that line, or they'd stay on that. But now if once I say I drew that line in the sand and this person takes another little step and goes, well, what about this? I go, all right, I see where they're going with this, right? They're going to continue this behavior, and I have to continue to put up those boundaries. So that's kind of like one example I would do. And it just, you go back to what your policies are. Greg and I are big fans of, if you didn't write it down and you didn't tell everyone about it, it wasn't a policy and it didn't happen, right? So if I can write that stuff up, it gives everyone, puts everyone on the same page. Greg, I know you probably want to add to that.
That's why I'm here, buddy. So Shelley would say 2 words. Yeah, no. Our CEO is probably the smartest human that I've ever dealt with. And she would say, no way, that behavior doesn't go. Start it early, set the boundaries early, so then you know if the person continues pinging those boundaries that you go, okay, this is when we cut and we're out of there. So from a physiological standpoint, I'll just answer the science. From a physiological standpoint, the word that you used, uncomfortable, is hugely telling. Uncomfortability is part of your electrochemical neurotransmitters warning you that there may be an encounter. Now, it's okay to be uncomfortable even after you've dived off the 3-meter board to get a little shaky in the knees when you get up there again, okay? That's normal. So going into somebody else's house strangely, you want to be uncomfortable because you want to look for exits. You want to think your way out of a potential trapping or ambush situation. But by the same token, if you're starting to get physiological indicators that this just doesn't pass the smell test, this just doesn't feel right, that's your brain screaming at you, danger warning, Will Robinson, time to have an exit strategy. The idea is that this piece of what you're saying is called part task training, internal, down and in for your folks. And what you do is you say, okay, ladies, we're going to act this out. We all sit around a table and assume roles, and then some person does that. Hey, I like your hair. Can I touch it? Well, no, you can't touch it, and you can't touch me. Back off. I get this all the time, so it's easy for me to talk about it. And then what you get is you get to the point where you conduct a rehearsal. Why do you do a rehearsal? Because then you can feel what right looks like. You can see and smell and taste it and touch it. And that's valuable because then when it comes up in the future, you go bing, 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 something's out of order here. I don't like it. The problem with human condition is the more we repeat a behavior, the more it becomes so usual that we miss the warning signs. I've been in 20 houses today. You go what I'm saying? And so by the 18th house, I kind of mentally checked out and I'm just pulling air. Well, what's the difference between a copper on a traffic stop? He's been on 9 and none of the 9 traffic stops gave him a problem. And now this person pulls a gun, fires a shot. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be emotionally present and we have to be psychologically and cognitively aware of the situation we're in at that moment. And that's not called situational awareness. That's called critical thinking skills. Where am I right now? What am I doing? What do I need to get up and out of here if I have to? So this is a great question because it's multifaceted, and you could build a whole training program out of just that question.
Yes, because what you're talking about too is, what Greg is discussing here that we talk about is, you've always seen in these cases like where someone after the fact goes, I had a feeling something wasn't right. There was something felt off. Okay, well, the reason why people keep going through this for exactly what Greg said. Well, I've done it 37 times before, nothing bad has happened, so I'm sure I'll be fine, right? And remember, when the bad situations occur, when something catastrophic happens, it's never when you had a full night's rest, you had a nice breakfast, you were thinking about how you were going to do. When does it happen? It's when you're running late, you've got 10 million other things going on, you're not paying attention to what's going on. That's when those things occur. It has to do with human attention. If all you had to do was what we do and focus and watch people, well, you'd get really good really fast, but you can't do that throughout your day, right? You have a job to go do. So I always like to frame it with that. All right. Remember, during those times where it's highly stressful, you're running late, you're trying to get somewhere, that's when you get there and you take that second, you literally take a breath in, back out and go, okay, now what am I here to do? All right, what's going on? If I get in that right state of mind, it'll help me notice those things.
And Brian, if I can dovetail on what you said, let me give you a story. I deal in stories a lot. So first of all, remember that, no. Because it's okay to say no. And it doesn't matter because the client isn't always right. And you as business people know that. The client is not always right. It's not worth making the money if you have to endure something that you're not comfortable with. Part 2 of that is living up in the mountains, had a dude and guest ranch in the mountains for 12 years. And the idea that guests fly into Denver every day and rent a car to drive up into the mountains to go skiing and riding and rafting. What happens is there's a thing called winter in the mountains, and it snows this high out here, and I'm standing up. And the people that get the rental car think that, well, it's going to be just like driving in Boston or Philly or Tampa or wherever the hell they live, and it's not. Speed limit out here is 70 or 75 in some stretches. All of a sudden you get an elk on a road that's 1,000 pounds, or you get ice or you get snow. and they go, oh, well, I have 4-wheel drive. 4-wheel drive is not Harry Potter's magic wand that comes down and makes the conditions better. So if you don't rehearse for those specific conditions, you may find yourself in a dangerous or debilitating accident or a life-altering experience. So why would going into somebody else's house be different? Every house is different, even if it's in the same block and even if it's in the same apartment complex. So if you don't rehearse for those situations, what do I do if? What if they start talking about this? And guess what? It's easy. You can script it yourself because you're subject matter experts. And then you're doing the right thing by reaching out and asking us a couple of questions for the marginal stuff that you may not be experts in.
Does that answer the question? Let us know and cut into if we're going too long or
no, I got some great notes.
Yeah, so we did bring up a lot in there, how to plan for that stuff, fit it within your company policies, and like Greg said, just rehearse. You can sit around with people and go, all right, if this happens, I'm going to play the person you're walking in, and seriously, just that little rehearsal. Now I have something to draw on when I'm in that situation. All right, so who wants to go? Who wants to go next?
Next.
Tori, go for it.
Okay, so this one we do have kind of a policy around it. So I'll say kind of the question, the policy we have, and kind of what maybe you guys can let us know what we could be doing more for this one. So this one is the thought of someone just booking as, say, a woman's name. We get there, it's a man. He says, oh, she's inside, just come on in. It ends up being a scam. There's no women and there's just bad intentions. Our policy around this is we do need to see the person that's getting braided before we enter. And we require the person that we're braiding to have 6 inches of hair. So if it was a male without 6 inches of hair, it would clearly not be the person that we're braiding that day. So that's kind of the current policy we have, but what more we can kind of do about that scenario.
So yeah, that definitely goes into what you have to do when you sign up. I don't know if you have to submit like a photo for a profile or about yourself. You can make that stuff kind of fun and exciting for the user experience, right? And then you're also that's also helpful to the person showing up to know, okay, I know who it is that what I'm expecting to see. But you already have in there certain rules where all right, if this person, if this is the person that booked it and someone else answered the door, it's simple as like, okay, well, can I see that person? Can I talk to them before I come in? And that kind of sets the tone. And then you already have your like, well, we don't braid hair shorter than 6 inches, so they should know that you showing up and giving people the confidence to say no, walk away, call, and figure out something. Oh, sorry, I know Greg, you wanted to go too.
No, I spot on again, Brian. And the idea is, I go back to the Shelley CEO. Yeah, no theory. You can't solve problems. We train airlines. You can't solve problems at 30,000 feet. It's too late in the game. There's too many tangibles. So solve it outside or on the front porch and solve it right away. So you say, this is, first of all, remember, if a person does something intentionally like that and they seek to gain an advantage in some other way, then that's fraud. That's a crime. You can't do that, and at least you have a civil recourse where you can sue the person. Now, look, we want to make this as simple as possible. You folks are in a business, but it's not pleasure. Okay, it can be pleasurable for you when you make the money and go to the beach with your significant other, but they're at the house. Look, you're not that much to our bottom line that I can't say no to you. And you have to train your personnel to do that. And it's not an emotion-based response. It's a safety-based response. I don't know you. I'm taking a big risk just being here. And the amount that you pay me is cool, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to look the other way when you're not a rule follower. Rule followers, people on the highway that don't use their blinkers when they change lanes. Rule followers, people on the highway that go a different speed. What right do you have to endanger me and my family when I go out on the road? So what's the difference in a business standpoint where a person's changed the rules on you and, oh, by the way, I'm going to ambush you with this information? That's an all stop right now. Reconsider and no. And Brian, you said something earlier, and if I could hit on what you said earlier about if it's not written down, it didn't happen. That goes more than just policy. I institute every time I go to an agency, I say you have to have a pass down log. What that means is a yellow pad with notes that every other shift after you gets a chance to read. Now I'm old school with the chalk on the thing. This is where the hunting area is in a cave. You guys have computers now. If you get a client that used a specific tactic, if you had a client that used a specific name, those type of things have to be on that pass on log, so you don't, one, waste money by going through that Mobius loop of, no, it's the wrong person, and two, for safety. Police reports are free. You go into a police station and make one. Calling 911 and saying, I need an officer to escort me off this property, sends a couple of messages. One, to your person that, listen, the cops are going to show up, and it's an important thing. Dog bites is important as a homicide to a copper, a good copper. Second thing is, it shows the homeowner or the person that called you, you're not screwing around. Now, you don't want to get that in detail on every call, but you shouldn't have to, because I'm assuming this popped up in your mind, Tori, because it was rare. It was one that happened, and it doesn't happen, 5 or 6 times a week. If it starts happening 5 or 6 times a week, there's something wrong with your website. You get what I'm trying to say, or you're getting the wrong kind of clients. But if it's one of those Gladwellian outliers, address it by saying, this is an all stop. This is a no. And we don't play that.
And some of what Greg's talking about isn't just from a safety issue. It's a business issue too. If you had some way for, the different women that are working for you to rate the customer and write some notes on them, you're building a profile on them, because you're going to have the same customer that argues about price, never tips, but is always calling and want you to do more. And if you're documenting that, it might give you reason to charge them more or do something else or create a different way to approach them. And so it's about business too. And then there's we don't really teach what are called tactics, techniques, and procedures. We kind of talk about them, but we let people develop them on their own. But it's very simple too. You can have a rule for everyone showing up at the house where they leave all their stuff in the car. First, they go make contact with the person, right? Find out, make sure everything's good, that it's there. And then they can go, okay, I need to go grab my stuff right now, right? Because that gives them an automatic out built in. If they don't feel comfortable, they get in their car, they call you, they back away, they do whatever your policies are. But also it gives them that sense of, all right, let me make sure what it is. So your first step is to make sure this is the correct customer at the correct location, right? That just makes sense if you don't want to haul your stuff up a stairs and then you're at the wrong door or they put the wrong address. You get what I'm saying? So there's functionality and utility built into all that. It's not just about a safety issue, but if you make those standard operating procedures, people will do that then every single time. And it kind of gives them what we call the gift of time and distance. It gives them this extra second or two to evaluate the situation.
And I'd add to that, great plan, by the way. I'd add to that not everyone that's out in the world wants to co-opt you or use you or cheat you or steal you. But we're dealing in unique situations here. Brian was going to change Grubhub to Hair Hub. He did have an idea about, going into the home and collecting hair. It was an odd one, but
making hair dolls
you're in somebody else's home, they have the castle doctrine in their mind. This is my home. I'm the customer. I set the rules. You have to engage that early. You have to disabuse them of that. You're providing a service, and your service is a profession, and we're going to give you a professional service for a price that we've agreed upon before. But there's a contract, and the contract means that you do your part, I do my part. You sit there with your hands in your lap and let me braid your hair. And remember, I'm being very binary. I'm being very black and white on it because I have to, because science means that if you give a person an indication that it's okay to do other things, they're going to run rampant in that space. So there's nothing wrong with you getting together with your 3 heads together and with your 60 plus workers and saying, what we need to do is we need to draft a 2-sentence intro. You hold up your phone and you go, hi, this is my company phone. I have to call at the end of this thing. If I'm gone longer than so-and-so, they'll send the troops. Now, I know we're not going to get there, but my company makes me say that also it's all about the safety. So if you do anything goofy, I hit the panic button and we're all out of here. Something like that. I do that on a traffic stop when I'm walking up to a car at night. I go, hey, listen, you're just getting off with a warning. No need to shoot me. Let's just talk about this calmly for a minute. And I bring a little levity into the situation, but I establish clear boundaries. Why? Because you need to have those boundaries so you can call a tactical timeout in the middle of a situation and get out of it. I'm not here to talk about my kids. I'm not here to talk about my lover. I'm not here to talk about where I'm going on vacation. I'm here to braid your hair. Now, it's going to be fun. You're going to have a ball, and you're going to look great. You see how I turned that? And I said, here's my boundaries. But listen, I'm here to give you the good service. You have to develop that. That has to be part of your business process. And I know you're doing that now, but you have to make sure that there's a or else in there, and it's not just hidden. In other words, if you choose to go down that path, I'm leaving. If you choose to go down that path, I've got no problem calling the cops, right? Because that form of negotiation puts the person in the right frame of mind right up front. Now, you're going to say, yeah, but there's certain times when I'm at a kid's birthday party and I don't have to give that preamble. Now, you have to give that preamble. You have to give it to mom outside or dad outside or whoever's paying the bill outside before you go. And it doesn't have to be a threat or a veiled threat. Just have to be 2 sentences, and you can tell your people to hold up their phone and read it off the contract that you have on your website. Those type of things are disarming, and psychological disarming means that there's not going to be any frippery later. You're planning now to make sure it's not going to surprise you 10 minutes from now.
I love that. I wanted to add something here. We actually had one of the braiders say that she did this on her own, but it was cool that she shared it with the team. She lets her clients know that when she's there for her appointment, she lets them know that she just checked in with like HQ or whoever, and then at the end that she has to check out, like for safety and things like that. Like obviously to her, that's what it's for. But we thought that was a really good idea because we hadn't really thought of it because we don't make them check in and out. But to say that out loud, even to say like, oh, let me just check in real quick. And then she says she actually had something, she had something happen to her, unfortunately, not with our business, but when she was younger. So she's very cautious, and she said she'll call her fiance or husband and let him know instead of like obviously us. So that's kind of her check in and out.
Chelsea, that's spot on. And the way your brain works, you have a series of chemical impressions in your mind. So there's going to be a time that you are convinced you said something and you didn't. That's why you have to have a note. That's why you have to have a checklist to make sure that you do things over and over. That's why pilots don't just think I checked the plane. They have the co-pilot read them 1, 2, 3. Your folks need to do the same thing. Why? Get them in the right frame of mind. Each house, it's like an Etch-a-Sketch or cleansing your palate at the wine tasting. Shake it up, start it over again. Okay, here's my preamble. Here's my intro. It doesn't have to be big. The idea that you do it for every case no matter what means that you won't forget it, and it does something physiologically and psychologically. It reinforces your confidence at the scene. And when you're acting in a confidence manner, the person's not going to take that chance. Look, one day you're going to run into that person that calls the realtor and has the rape kit ready, and it's going to be an assault and a homicide, and they're going to leave them in a dumpster. And as horrible as it is for me to have to look you in the eye and tell you that on this Zoom, you all know that already, because women have been predated since there's been a vagina. But the idea that we have to think about is all of those steps that we can take before we go in there, okay, are lessening the likelihood of the bald guy with the white cat. Yes, Mr. Bond. There's nobody out there that's going, hey, we're going to attack Braid Babes, so let's start the planning. But there is the chance that that one person may be thinking about it. And for you to come up right in front and say, here's the rules, and if the rules aren't applied, I'm splitting, that may change that person's psychology right there, and they're not going to pick you. Now, the sad part is they may pick somebody else, but they're not going to pick one of your workers, and they're not going to victimize them. And that is a win.
All right. So yeah,
great question.
Great question. So we'll throw to you guys again. What's another? Hopefully we answered all that, but I know we're kind of giving a lot at once, so we'll recap it, but at the end. No. But
I'm amazing. So.
When have you
show
ever
that photo again?
When have you ever been to a wine tasting, Greg? So when Greg tastes wine,
I whine a lot. I whine to you all the time. Every day I call you and go, "Why are we doing this? I hate this."
So, all right, we'll throw to you guys. Who wants to take a next question or situation?
I've got the next one for us here. So we have one that says, I absolutely hate going into rooms that are closed off and I can't see a point of exit. My mom was very worried when I became a Braid Babe because our appointments are an easy way to lure one of us to get kidnapped. I always have people lock the door behind me, yet I never feel unsafe. Sometimes I worry that the bigger this company gets, the more our safety is at risk.
That's a great one. And I think you kind of had like, there's ways to manage that. One, that's always a good way to look at things like, hey, I always want to have an exit. Like, but that in general in life, that's why we tell people you're at a stoplight, don't pull up too close to that car in front of you, you give yourself a little bit of space, right, in case you need an out. I mean, just basic stuff like that. So I like that they're looking at that, and there's ways to, you know, kind of manipulate the situation. I think you guys even had in there as an example where someone was like, hey, can we set up in here? The lighting is better over here. And they were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. You know what I mean? And that's perfect. That's what we call that's like a great de-escalation strategy, is how you manipulate the environment to your advantage. And that's a great way to look at it. Hey, I'd rather do it in here because I can't see as much, and you know, this is kind of closed off. Those little things, and again, it's always going to be kind of put into context. Usually someone who's uncomfortable in that situation, you know what, there was actually maybe something else in the environment too that they maybe didn't consciously pick up on or were aware of, that led them to be that. Because most places, you know, you'd go in and probably like, well, there's no reason I can't be in this woman's bedroom. She's 78 years old and has a hard time standing up. I think this should be easy, right? But there might have been something else there. So those little things that get into like that's like the whole, what I talked about, hey, leave your stuff in the car, go check the door first. Those little things are very, very simple ways to increase your survivability if something were to happen, right? So we always focus on let's mitigate it from happening, but if something were, always looking and having an exit is a great plan. Greg?
Yeah. So I'm thinking while this is going on, and I'm thinking again, I always like to go back to take a look at what case law says about certain situations, and I'm going through my mental Rolodex, and I can't think of the state or the city, but I believe it was Florida, and I believe it was just last week, where a social worker went to the home of a person that she has to evaluate on a, let's say, a bi-monthly basis. And that person had set it up to hold her hostage in the house and do all sort of bad things to the female. The photo itself is sobering at the end. But when the coppers were interviewing her, she said, it was the first time I'd been to the house where the family wasn't there. I noticed that the windows were all covered. I noticed that there was nothing in the front room, and the only light on was at the back of the house where I had to walk to. The coppers didn't pick up on it till Sunday. She made the appointment on Friday. Think of all those things right there, where if we were going to do a tabletop exercise during training, what's wrong with this picture? You got to show what wrong looks like, or you're never going to understand what right looks like. And that social worker was a trained, experienced, veteran professional. And looking back, she said, look at all these cues. You don't have the time to do that. And you're not going to have the business bandwidth to do that more than once, maybe, right? So, one, have it in your hand and in your head that everybody that goes door to door is at the risk of robbery, assault, kidnap. That's just how life works. So whether it's a religious pair in the white shirt and a black tie coming to talk to you, or a girl selling cookies, whatever that person does, when you go to an unknown neighborhood on an unknown porch, reap the whirlwind. So training changes that. Rehearsal changes that. What do I do if? I think the other thing is that Brian brought up something good. If I don't have somewhere that you can request a change of venue, in other words, I'd be much more comfortable in the kitchen than in this back bedroom. Yeah, but it's less noisy and the kids aren't going to come in. Yeah, but I'm telling you it's going to be this way, or no. Again, to the Shelley rule of yeah, no, you are in charge here. One, we don't want to impact your bottom line and get you thrown out of a bunch of houses. So that's where you have to sit down and go, this is what we'll accept. Again, risk mitigation 101, risk reward. What are we willing to do to get that reward? And I tell you, you can have it both ways. I say that feeling uncomfortable is not part of your business model unless it's feeling uncomfortable because I'm newer and I haven't done it a couple of times. So prepare your personnel for those first few times. I say also institute a ride-along program. I say that, and Emily, this is the one I'm going to hold you to because I'm going to call you in 6 months and ask you. You send an experienced vet the first couple of times with the person that's braiding the hair, and the two-person team evaluates you. You did good on that. And you tell the homeowner, hi, this is a checkout right. She's very good at what she does, but she's newer to this neighborhood, so I got to kind of stick around and, chat it up a little bit and then fill it out afterwards. Hey, this is how you did on that. Oh, don't go into that. That's an old trap. Why? Because that's going to show your personnel that you're investing in them. Their hair braiding, you have on your website, and apologize for butchering it, the Hair Braiding Academy or whatever it is, which I think is just a brilliant strategy, by the way. But part of that
Greg signed up for it.
Right? I did. I asked for all the information. Please send it to the house in Gunnison, Pony Express. But the idea is that, look, those extra, the extra mile that you go for the beautiful website and for all the other stuff that you do, go that extra mile for your employees. They'll turn around and they'll exceed all of your expectations of them. And it also shows that you care about their safety. You can do a setup with one of your boyfriends or girlfriends or moms or an aunt. My Aunt Elfrida's house, I'm thinking in my mind, would be perfect in east side of Detroit, where you go and you have it set up as the FTO, as a field training officer, and go, hey, we're going to go to the door. And everybody that's at the house, where you just pull up in front, make it real. Everybody at the house is a Confederate. They work for you. And you come to the door and the guy's got a couple of beers in him. Hey, yeah, you're that braid lady. Come on in. Nope. You get what I'm saying? The yeah, no. And then you stop and you step out of role for a minute. Think about the role playing. And you go, okay, Teresa, what just happened? And Teresa has to explain. Now you get past that first person in the door, and now you're in the dimly lit hallway. Yeah, no. We have to go into the kitchen. So what you're doing is you're setting up a house. Brian and I have to go with law enforcement and set up a house and explain to them how to do, for example, SSI, sensitive site exploration or investigation, SSE. And the idea is that why not set it up the same way? It would be a fun afternoon. Afterwards, everybody sit around and have a Mai Tai, and you do a icebreaker and go, what did we learn from this? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Or do Pilates, whatever the fuck people do now, goat yoga. But the idea is that type of exercise will stick in the brain because it's sticky, and they'll remember that. And the other part of that is owning a business, you have to be able to go back and defend yourself and said, we did training. This is the training we did. This is how long we did it. And everybody was required to go through it because that's legal. And that'll scare off some crappy attorney that wants to go after you for some crappy lawsuit.
Yeah, I always try to make that a joke out of all the communication stuff too. Is that's what you can work with the girls at too. Is kind of build it because it's good again for customer service and for safety. We do that stuff all the time. I used to always have a pack of cigarettes on me, not because I smoke, because the more you used to be, well, a lot more people did. And the most social people in the world were cigarette smokers. So I could walk up to someone with a cigarette in my mouth and go, "Hey, you got a light?" Because if they have one, once they give me that, now we're in. Now we're in a conversation, whether that person wants to or not. So now I can start pulling information from people. But it's the same thing, just making that joke like, "Oh man, I have a couple of drinks already today, huh?" And like they'll laugh, "Yeah, man, I've quite a few." And you're going, "Oh, okay, I'm going to take a step back right now." If you make light of that stuff, or it can, de-escalate the situation, and you find out it's not a big deal, and you're just building rapport and starting that conversation. It's good for your business. So again, this stuff, don't just look at it through the lens of, hey, this is about safety and security. It's about customer service and communication and just building your brand too, right? When they come in and they're professional and they go through that process, I love seeing stuff like that on anyone. I don't care what it is. You go to a restaurant and sit down, and you get really good service, that. And you know what? They can screw up your food, but if they take care of you, right, and they're giving you good service, they go, "Hey, you know what? We didn't do it right that time. I'm going to take that off the meal." You'll go back. You'll be like, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, that was the worst meal I ever had, but you took care of me." So that's what people want. So part of the whole customer service, customer satisfaction is just building all that stuff into kind of your own routine and repertoire.
Love that. So our next one is, I've definitely been at an appointment braiding the daughter and the mom leaves. It's just me and the daughter and the mom's boyfriend, and he's just sitting watching me. So we kind of talked about like not entering the home unless it's truly that client. But then what if your client leaves and now you're kind of in an uncomfortable situation?
No, that's a great one. That's one of those right up front. Okay, mom, you cannot leave here. And you make a joke out of it. Like, "Hey, look, I had this one situation where I ended up babysitting a kid for 2 hours. And that's not what we do here. So I just want to make sure, if you leave, I have to leave as well. I'm not, oh, well, my, husband's here or boyfriend's here." It's like, I understand that, but you made the appointment, so you have to be there, and you just fall back to that company policy can help out with that.
Yeah, and I would say, Brian, to make sure that you look exactly what Brian's trying to tell you. Look, there's got to be the babysitter rule because babysitters have to do this all the time. So here's the thing. If dad's taking me home and he's been drinking, dad's not taking me home. If it's significant other but it's not husband, I'm not sticking around the house. Okay, so live-in boyfriend doesn't mean husband or significant other. And those are training tips, again, early on, that you tell your folks about it. Because what they're going to do, look, your brain wants the least caloric investment in whatever you're encountering. So your brain is going to look at the guy that's sitting on the bed next to the daughter as mom's leaving and go, hey, it doesn't look that bad. Or you're going to say, I think I could take him. Or, he's been nice to me up to this point until he pulled out the shackles, and now, do you get what I'm saying? So you don't want to go to that level and then have to rein it in, because that's harder. You also don't want to use levity at the wrong time. I use comedic humor, but I'm always very firm on my boundaries, and then I joke about it. So mom leaving saying, so you don't mind me kidnapping your daughter, or how does that work? I mean, that would be Greg's, speak. I don't advocate you using that one, but the idea is mom immediately goes, no, I feel less comfortable, and she'd come back in and sit right next to me while I was braiding the hair. But the idea is, again, that the rules you walk past, the enforcement of those rules is what you're accepting for the future. So here's a perfect example of, oh, mom, I can't. Well, I have to leave because I got to. Well, why don't you let him go? He doesn't drive. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm just to delay the appointment. I'll go. You call me, and I'll come back when you come back. Okay, there's a win-win strategy, And if she doesn't want to do it, then you know what? Your kid's going to go to school tomorrow with a half-braided head, because we cannot accept that. That's when things happen. Everybody says, well, we had all the plans and procedures and we rehearsed it. Hey, it's the 9/11 thing. One of the hijackers planned on flying the plane, but, he never took the lesson on how to land the plane because he had a different strategy. Don't get into those situations. Outthink a likely opponent. That's the difference. See, I'm thinking of victimizing you. You're thinking of, nope, I'm not a victim. I'm an opponent. I don't want to make that investment. Bad guys, bad humans don't want to go and take down Fort Knox. They want to take down the local bodega with the 80-year-old guy and assume that risk. I don't want to assume the risk of trying to do a bank, that's got armed guards. So you have to outthink. Think smarter than the common criminal.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's me again. Thank you. It's my call sign from now on, by the way.
No
I'm so flattered until I found out you couldn't braid my enormous German head. It's got its own solar system and gravity.
So, all right. So it does. On my side. So we'll jump to the next question from you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is actually my question. It's like a fake scenario, but if you're a cashier at a grocery store and someone like hits on you as you're checking them out, you probably awkwardly laugh, and that you're almost done with the checkout and you're moving on to the next client. So there's not really much left that you need to say. You could kind of ignore them and know that it'll be done soon. But kind of how to deal with that if we're stuck at their home. Then what do we do? What do we say?
That's such a great question, Tori. Brian.
It is. So it kind of goes back into those boundaries of setting them, being upfront and clear, and being almost joking about it. It's like, hey, look, I appreciate it. I'm here to do this. I'm here to braid hair. That's kind of what I'm focused on. If you keep talking to me like this, it's going to distract me from what I'm doing, that kind of stuff. And there's different ways, and I would find something that you guys can all talk about. I'm sure you've all had to deal with a guy being an asshole to you before. I guarantee all three of you have probably dealt with that. So what are some of the ways you've dealt with it in the past that have worked well? And like Greg always talks about different Shelly examples. Shelly's the people, she's the one that she throws it all on the table. Like, oh, this is what we're doing. And then people kind of start backpedaling. I've done one before. Even I was walking, it was actually back visiting families in Chicago. We were downtown in this area, and we started walking down the street to go to another area. And I saw a guy come from across the street, and he looked at us and started coming on an angle towards us.
Yep.
And it looked like he was going to come up and ask for some money or something. And once I saw him, all I did was I stopped, I turned and directly faced him and said, wrong guy. He never broke stride. He took an immediate left and went back the other direction. Didn't say anything, didn't do anything. But all I was telling was like, yeah, I see what you're doing, and I'm not going to stand for it. And he went to find a different target. So that's kind of what Greg was talking about. Can you do that verbally? Yeah, absolutely. You can kind of de-escalate that situation. And like I said, the more you all internally talk about, these are some things that I've experienced, that person, that individual braid babe can come up with what works best for her. Because, I can't do the stuff that Greg does. Greg can't do the stuff that I do. It just wouldn't make sense. It would fall flat. But if I find something that works really well for me, it's much easier and I'm much more confident.
I like.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please,
I was going to say, I like that you are saying a few times now about like setting those boundaries and the policies and things like that, because something along with this too, and you kind of just touched on it, is every braider is going to have their own way of handling it. And that's something that we've been talking about a lot since we've met with you, is that for an example, like one of our braiders was hit on seemingly by a woman, and it made her uncomfortable. But if that same woman, the same client, would have hit on one of our other braiders that we know for a fact would have joked back with her, that's like kind of something that we're trying to like decipher here, is that if it was okay with her first braider, but now it's not okay with her second braider, that's where we're getting into like a messy situation where we need to make these policies across the board, like you're saying, lay out something straight. And it's okay if you want to handle it different, but as long as the policy is set, then I feel like we're okay. But maybe you can correct
Chelsea,
me if I'm understanding wrong.
Chelsea, you're spot on. So now let's go back to science. So I'll do sociological and psychological. When you were growing up, all of the most important people that coached and mentored you in your life always told you, if you're looking for a marriage or whatever relationship that you like to last forever, go to the grocery store and get hit on by the cashier. Did that ever happen? Did that ever happen to anybody that's on this phone call? No, because it's the wrong effing venue for that to happen. So that type of grooming behavior in a grocery store is absolutely a no Shelley moment. Okay, so my next step would be thank you. Now, if it's just a, hey, your hair looks nice, or I like your shirt, okay, and there's nothing else behind it, it's just opaque, that's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do that 1,000 times a day just to stimulate conversation, check where people are, do all that other stuff. Or it's like, hey, let me see this. What's that? You don't have a ring. Okay, listen, you worn out vagabond, Don Juan, because people don't want anything to do with you. Okay, do you think a waitress gets that kind of shit? They get that. A waiter or a waitress gets that constantly, incessantly. Why? Because predatory people think that they're being charming, and they're not. It's not charming. It's off-putting. And as a matter of fact, your laughter when you were talking about it, Tori, is nervous laughter, which is a physiological response to the pressure you're being put on. Any time that you feel pressure in that type of an environment, it's a timeout. Now, if I felt that way, because clearly I get hit on all the time, but when I was at the cashier, if I felt as though it was investigative in nature and that the person had an ulterior motive, in other words, they were truly hitting on me, not just saying a compliment, two completely different standards that you got to go through with everybody. My very next trip was to the manager. Hey, I was just over at counter 3 and the person was hitting on me. So don't know how you do business, but if you don't want to lose me as a customer, you need to tighten that shit up. And people go, no way. That's me. Because there's right, there's wrong, there's good, there's evil. And scientifically, geographically, there's a location for people to hit on people. If I willingly go to a bar and have a drink and dress up to get somebody up in my bins, then that's the time that I want to talk about that stuff. But if I'm out on the street waiting for a bus, that doesn't give you the right to come across the street and start hitting on me. All about the boundaries. And if you set them for one, it goes for everybody. And this isn't about LGBTQ and wondering like my dear friend Brian. This is about a stone cold fact that I'm a human and I have certain things that I like and I don't like, and you have to respect those, or we're not getting anywhere. So why would it be different? I made a hair braiding appointment, and that's when I want to hook up. Shut the F up. You see how silly that feels now when we look back on it? I'm sorry, Brian.
No, and you, like you kind of brought up, Chelsea, that's different for every person, right? What one person is comfortable with and can throw right back and doesn't care makes another person very uncomfortable. And that's just about kind of communicating that. And when it comes to stuff like this or speaking about it, like I always give people an out because it's going to tell me how they're going to handle it, right? So I was going, hey, look, I know you probably didn't mean it this way, but it kind of came across like this. And you know what? I just wasn't comfortable with that. Because what is someone who didn't mean it that way? They go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was not my intention whatsoever. Right. All right. But someone who does, they now know, okay, well, not with this person. I'm not getting any farther with this person.
And guess what else it gives you, Brian? It gives you that chance now that person comes back and goes, oh, cat's got, claws. Well, you know that they're going to continue to push those boundaries, and that's an immediate all stop. The idea is humans demonstrate their intent and their mannerisms and what you're going to expect. And we just don't pay attention to the cues because we're so, I got good price on the plantains. How about the cling peaches? And that person has an ulterior motive. What Brian's saying is change the focus of the conversation and say, I know you didn't mean it. It sounded like you almost hit on me there at a shopping center. But so what were you saying? And then the person will immediately go, oh, crap, and go the different direction. Call people out, hold people accountable, and that means down and in too. That means your own personnel. Brian, the only thing I want you to clarify is what you said is everybody has to deal with it differently, but a policy says that everybody will deal with it. Am I hearing that right? That nobody gets away with that shit.
Yeah. You can have your own method of doing it, but they should know how to establish those boundaries. Now, some people can do it easily. Some people, it takes a little bit of practice, but trust me, just with a little bit of rehearsal of saying something like that, because a lot of times especially when we get put in an uncomfortable situation like that, like if you don't have a response ready, if you don't know what to say, you'll go blank and then you'll get more uncomfortable and then you'll, okay. So just having something to say a lot of times helps out in the situation.
Yep.
Chelsea. Up
next. So this one says drunk people at big parties always weird me out too. And it's not even men all the time. It's women too, who like always want to touch you or put their arms around you and talk super close to you. I like instantly freeze and smile.
So yeah, that's a big one.
Go ahead, old clingy Brian.
I can imagine. I wouldn't know what's worse, going into like a group of guys on a bachelor party or a group of women at the same kind of thing. I couldn't tell you which one is worse. They're probably equally as bad. But the idea is that still goes back to those boundaries of making clear up front, especially in a situation like that where you've got a bunch of women who are paying to all get their hair braided. They've got some event or something that they're doing. Great. That's those time when, especially if they're sitting there drinking already and having fun. Okay, let's get everyone around real quick. Just want to go over a few ground rules before we get started. We're going to have so much fun. You're going to look amazing. We're going to do an awesome job. I just need you to know that you guys are on a different level than we are right now. We're here for work. Yep. Just get them laughing, going, okay. And they'll appreciate that and understand it. And now you have something to refer back to when one of those gets a little too close because they don't realize how drunk they are and they're doing the close talker and they're like getting in your way. You go, hey, remember what we talked about? Rule number 1 back at the beginning. I know you're not meaning it, but I got to do this. And if you just put it back to, look, I'm here for a job. This is what I'm here to do. I need to focus on that because that's going to give you the best product possible, right? If you keep interrupting me over here, then it's not going to look good on you, right? And I just think, just like Greg said, is establishing those boundaries right up front and those rules.
So this is a fun one for Greg's brain because I just came up with a couple. Anybody listening, feel free to use them. One, I'm speculating in my mind that the tips are going to flow like the booze and it's going to be an environment where a lot of people are chipping in and paying. So you don't want to just say, we're not going to do alcohol or kind bud invested, parties, okay? But you got to remember that if you're going to pay for the bounce house, every once in a while a police helicopter comes by and throws all the kids into the parking lot next door and everybody's on the way to the emergency room, which again happened. Do your homework. So let's think about this. How much money you're going to pay, hire somebody for $18 an hour to wear a referee top and a pair of black pants and have a whistle. And when things get out of control, they blow the whistle and you tell everybody up front, hey, the good ethics police or whatever are here today. So if you get out of line, they're going to point, and everybody gets a little laugh out of it. But no shit, the referee is there to tell you what not to do. Now, you can also make it where the people police themselves. So you buy some popsicle sticks, the little wood ones, and get little index card. Brian and I do so many things on index cards. Have one red taped to one green index card so I can show you either the red or the green. And then have everybody start off early, and it'll get them giggling early on. Listen, if the behavior's okay, I'm going to hold up the green. If the behavior's not okay, I'm going to hold up the red. And then as things start going, because there's more than one person in the room, I would look at Brian and I would go, how's it going, Brian? And Brian holds up the green. And he goes, well, how's it going, Greg? And I go, red. Greg's sad. Nobody's playing with me or whatever. That's setting up a standard, a very simple binary rule standard where when things are getting out of control. I could see that as at a gender reveal party. I could see that as some sort of birthday party, right? Because sometimes when there's an advent of alcohol, people stop thinking critically. So all we want to do is say, you can put your brain on a shelf with your car keys. I'll handle it from here with those little tricks. Does that make sense? And that was spontaneous. So if we really put some time together and thought about this, I'm sure you could come up with 3 or 4 other intervention strategies.
That is even good. Like we've had before. I've personally been at a party where the braider had to do something about it. My the girl that sat in my chair was bullying the girl that sat in the other chair, and the other braider like stepped in immediately and said something to the kid, and it was a kid, so it was a lot easier to feel like you have a right to step in and say something. But even giving some of these scenarios and saying like how comfortable you would feel with a kid is like the same comfort level you should be able to feel with an adult, of saying like
sometimes drunk people equals kids. So
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no, you're both right. You're both right. But the idea too is think about it now, not while you're there. So you rehearse for it now. And it can be a funny offsite too, because everybody has a couple of drinks and somebody stays sober and goes, hey, do you know how shitty that is that I have to stay sober and manage you idiots? You know, and then everybody looks at it differently. The idea is that's a limited objective experiment. And it's okay to have those, just have those before you get to the house. The other part is enlist the aid of groups. If I'm ever in a group and people are acting out, I go, I don't know, let's ask everybody. Hey, so-and-so is grabbing all up in my private zones here and I'm feeling uncomfortable. Should I say something? What you just did is you did that out in front of the group and everybody gets the uncomfortable smile. You think that person's going to keep that up? I set a boundary right now. That, again, is the no moment. And you don't want to be rude. Being rude, being rude means that you didn't take the time to do something right. So give yourself the gift of time and distance unless it's something that's in progress. If it's in progress, it ain't going to get better in 5 minutes. You got to stop it right then. So that's another thing. You know that kids have that game where you go around and the music stops and the chair is gone? Okay, those type of exercises with your group in an offsite where you drop in on them and say, we're going to conduct this experiment, those things will last forever. They remember it and it's sticky. And then when they get into that, and look, if everybody around you is drinking, they're going to want you to drink. Do you allow it or do you not allow it? Do you say, well, in this instance, it was okay? No, it's either you do or you don't. It doesn't change going down the road. Because if it does, the legal standard that you just set means that there was an example and you chose off the menu, therefore you're liable.
And you could come up with this, like we like stories, right? Because it conveys a message and it gets the point across. So you can come up with a story that they can use. Like, hey, look, sorry, we got these rules. Let me tell you about this awful thing that I was at a bachelorette party and this happened. And then we had to do this and we almost got sued. And they had this all because this person was so drunk and and you just use someone else as what wrong looks like, and they're going to go, oh man, well, we don't want that to happen to us, right? So you can create kind of that dialogue or that narrative that you can go in there with.
And quirky doesn't mean dangerous. A person with a few drinks that is accidentally clingy might just need their shot group tightened a little bit by saying, handsy, and they'll stop forever, right? I've got friends that are like that, Brian. Brian is clingy, but when he gets drinky. But the idea is that if we tell people about it up front, that's fantastic. Make sure that they understand your boundaries. I always use humor as a psychological de-escalation. If you're not the humor person, then use the card, the red, red, that's an all stop. And then a person goes, what do you mean? You're making me uncomfortable. And then they'll back off, oh, I'm sorry. And then you go on. If the person continues to come back after you've told them it makes me feel uncomfortable, then it's intention. It's demonstrative intentionality, and that's I'm split and we're done. So would you think it's easier to do the rules up front and enforce them, or right in the middle when everybody's drinking and the music's blaring and the money is flowing, all of a sudden do that? Why do you think Vegas throws people out on their ear real early? Why do you think pole dancers that are getting showered with money, if anybody starts crossing that boundary on the stage, they're tossed out on their ear? The earlier you intervene, generally the less calories it's going to take and the less hurt feelings. The later you do it, man, that could be an incident. That might make the paper, and you can't afford that.
Well, I love that because a lot of our braiders have said that they don't feel comfortable saying those things in the moment. But if it's a kind of, you walk in and you set the boundary, like you said, then I feel like that will probably bring them the confidence that they're looking for. If they've already said it once, it's way easier to say it again. So I really like that.
Yeah, and Chelsea, if you're not comfortable talking to people, come up with something that you can repeat and repeat it. See it, say it, smell it, taste it, feel it, write it, read it. The more you do it, it's fine. So for example, in your personal life, come up with a rule violation. It's a Title V violation. Now, next time somebody tries to come up to you and solicit free money for gas, you know, they got the gas can at the thing and they catch you off guard and you're filling your car, hold up your hand and go, that's a Title VII violation. I'm sorry, I can't give you any money. I'd get fired. And the person will go, fuck, sorry, and they'll walk off. It'll take them a few minutes to go, what? And then you're out of there. Yeah. You get what I'm trying to say? So my Title VII violation, or whatever you come up with, whatever that string is, like Brian earlier saying, not today, or not this guy, or whatever. If you don't rehearse them, they're never going to come to you. How can I prove it? Take a look at all the times in your life where you walked away from somebody and you go, damn, I just thought of what I should have said in that situation. They always come, right? When you're going to break up with somebody, or you know, you're dumped by somebody, which I've got a tremendous amount of experience with. The idea is, sadly, and I'm crying inside right now, and I'm going to eat now soon. The idea is, though, if you rehearse it, you're going to do it. If you don't rehearse it, then it's just lip service. You own a company. You hire employees, and you pay them, so it's up to you. It's a responsibility to your company and to your people to write those rules down, rehearse them, and enforce them.
And I know you all are already sound like you're doing this, but it's just reinforcing with everyone. Like, what did you say? It's typically what, $65 or something for someone to come to your house, or somewhere around there.
Very reasonable, I say.
But so the idea is, you know, every one of the Braid Babes should understand that, you know, $65 is not worth something bad happening to them. Like they have to have the confidence to go, you know, we can make up that money. We can figure something out. We can come back. Right. We can apologize. It's never worth just, oh, you know what, I'm sure it'll be okay. It's never worth
well,
that.
even our kit, like the kit that we give them when they're hired is about $900. And we've been like, we obviously tell them, leave it. Like you leave that if you're unsafe and you need to get out of there. Like that was something we set early on. We were like, you are more important than this $900 kit.
Absolutely. You can, well, and you can get that back. That's when you can call the police and say, hey, I'm unsafe. This is what happened. And even if a crime wasn't committed, they can go in there and get your stuff and you're on your way. And yeah, did you lose a customer? Yeah. But you know, you're gonna
for the right reason.
Yeah, for the right, if it's for the right reason, then yeah, that's important. So
yeah. Cool. We have one more scenario, and then I was thinking maybe we have a couple like specific questions. Are we on a time limit? Do we need to
go for it.
Yeah, you guys passed it a few minutes ago. No. So now you're paying us to be here.
No, we have no time limit. Go for it. We'll stay on.
Take a look at us. Does it look like we have anything other to do? This is it. This is like the high point of our day.
But this room just has a refrigerator full of beer in it.
It's a Motel 6. I can tell by
the longer I talk to you, the more healthy I am, because I'll wait till later in the day to start drinking. So
that's hilarious.
All right, so this one is switching gears a little bit. We also do public events. We do what we call braid bars and festivals. So, and we publicize where we're going to be for those. So one of the braiders said, what if a stalker or bomber or attacker or just someone with bad intentions was watching our stories to see where we're going to be and came to the event with the intention of hurting us?
So
that's such a good question.
It's a good question. So events like that can be easier and harder sometimes, right? It can be easier because if it's in public, you can enlist the aid of others and you can assign someone a role as overall. So I'll give you an example. Even Greg and I, when we work together, if I'm teaching part of the course, right? Greg's in the back of the room and he's providing overwatch for me, meaning he's watching the reaction of everyone in the room. Not because he thinks someone's going to, you know, jump up and try and kill me, but just to make sure they're literally just receiving the information, because someone might give a look or something where they're puzzled, where they're not sure. And I might miss that when I'm up in front of everyone, right? But he does that, and to make sure I'm on track with where I need to go. And, you know, we do that for each other. So if he has to go to the bathroom when I'm up there teaching, he gives me a little signal. That's the American Sign Language. Hey, I need to use the bathroom, right? So he gives me that from the back of the room. So I know, even though I'm up there in the middle of doing everything, if it's been a little bit of time, it's been 10 minutes and he's not back yet, something's going on here. So maybe I can take a break. And the idea is we build in what we call that guardian angel process into everything that we do. no matter what it is. When we're sitting out to dinner, hey, I got to run to the bathroom, watch my stuff real quick. Hey, I'm going to go do this. We're walking down the street and I'm like, Greg, this guy's trying to get a hold of me. I gotta answer a text message. He's perfect. So he's looking up to make sure we're good. And I can sit there literally with my head down, follow along behind him and text because we have to get something done. And I have someone looking out for me. So that's something you can do even at a public place. You can have that person whose main job is it. And if it's a big enough event and you have a lot of people, that might be the time to, you can hire someone for a half a day or contact local authorities and get someone to show up or something like that to say, I mean, the big one with it, we can get the police department and go, hey, we'll give one of your, officers who has at least 6 inches of hair a free hair braid if they want to come by. Well, there you go. You know what I mean? Something like that. We always try to keep it like that. And I know, Greg, you have a lot more to add too.
Yeah, I never have anything good to add, but I always have something to add. So the idea that somebody is, listen, let's go back to Iraq. Let's go back to body bombers. I used to have to walk into a room of Marines that were scared of their next deployment or in the middle of a deployment. And it's okay to say scared. I'm not cutting anybody down. I was shitting my pants because somebody might walk up in a crowd and blow you away into smithereens. The idea is, what value target are you? You're not a high value target. As a matter of fact, you're more likely to be killed by somebody that knows you, loves you, and has been around you in your family, a scene of domestic violence perhaps, or just whatever happens in some families like Brian's. The idea in Chicago, the idea is that you have to think big picture. A lot of alcohol.
A lot of Irish.
I'm just saying. You have to think about, one, it's unlikely and unreasonable to assume that you're going to be targeted for assault or robbery. You're more likely to succumb to an internal threat where somebody cooks the books, somebody pockets the tip and doesn't give you the money. Somebody says, oh, I didn't show up there, and takes the $65 and goes out to dinner with their loved one. That's a reasonable concern. Now, does that mean that I'm stupid when I walk in a situation that I don't look for other things? No, but as Brian is saying, this is a situation where I say increasing your situational awareness increases your critical thinking. Give you 2 incidents. It was a politician that was on the East Coast, and a drunken guy walks up to him that's got a little PTS and happens to have one of those Kubotan key rings that looks like an owl, but it's got the points sticking out, and gets really close to him before the security grabs him. And they said, oh, it was an assassination attempt on a guy. No, it wasn't. Drunk guy with a little mental problems that had a break with reality and walked up. Be prepared for that. Rehearse for that. Direct them away. Walk over. Security. It's done. Always de-escalate. Always psychologically de-escalate from the beginning. Now, the difference is somebody that's eye-screwing one of your people and trying to get them off, isolated with that, call early and call often. There's going to be security at the event. There's going to be cops at the event, and explain to them, that guy's making me uncomfortable. And you know what? It's their job to go and check that person out. Almost never happens. Almost never happens. But if you don't prepare for it, you're going to feel uncomfortable all day thinking that that person's predating you. And remember, females are predated, but that doesn't mean that they're going to have a higher incidence in public of being attacked at a social event. And listen, it's a matter of fact, you got to have your name in the yellow pages. Look it up later. It's a good one. Or people aren't going to come to your event. So if you're not advertising your event, look, if I remember correctly, because I apologize, it was a couple of weeks since I was on your website, you have a photo of the whole damn design team right there on doing the hearts thing, right? And you're all up in front. That's enough to get some unscrupulous idiot to look at that and go, oh, I'm in love with Tara, and start writing messages. That's just how life works. Rein it in. Make sure you create those boundaries, and don't ever be afraid to call the police. The police are there for this. A police officer will tell you, male or female, doesn't matter what city that they work. I would rather come on 10 nothing calls than come on one where somebody blew up in the marketplace and killed everybody because nobody was paying attention. That's what they paid for. That's what a good cop would want to do anyway. Brian, kudos, extra Boilermaker in your lunch today for coming up with that one of inviting a local cops. I would add to that, the semblance of security is something people don't think about. Hire somebody's brother and just buy him lunch and have him wear a triple extra large polo that says security on the back and have him walk around once in a while. People believe that stuff and they'll leave you alone. You would be surprised at how just your level of confidence can be good. But if there's a real threat, I'd go back to the book of Shelley, just don't go. If there's a real credible threat and it's on a holiday, like Monday was Ashura. A lot of people don't know what that means. That's a big date. Brian and I wouldn't be teaching on Ashura because that means that we would have to fly before it, after al-Zawahiri was killed. Look it up, folks that are listening. Do your homework. A couple of days after al-Zawahiri, being a white male at an airport might be a death sentence. So just think about that. And you're the brain trust. Sit down and yellow pad it. What must we risk, Friedrich Nietzsche, by what reward we're getting? You know, it's real simple math, but never put yourself in a situation where the money is so good that you go, yeah, we're going to look the other way. That's how that shit starts. It's not worth it.
Right, right. Okay, cool. So we each have a question, it looks like. And so mine is one that we go back and forth on a decent amount because, you know, I don't know what's actually appropriate. But when it comes to our appointments, the amount of men that are booking an appointment, it's probably 1% or less of our appointments. It might be less than 1%, except here and there we do have fathers that will book for their daughters, which is so adorable.
It really is.
But it makes our policies a little bit harder because it's like, oh, well, make sure when you get to the door that it's the person that you're expecting is at the door. Okay, well, if my appointment name says an ambiguous name, that could be a man or woman's. I don't know if it's my client. We don't currently have them submit photos yet. But it would be so plain as day if we were like only women or only those that Tori, what did you say? Like women
presenting
can book Braid Babes appointments, and then we could like keep it a little bit simpler like that. But I did see on your website that, you know, when it comes to these kinds of things, you can't have prejudices. Anyone can do, you know, a crime. But
yeah. So that's a more of a business question too.
Yes.
On what you want to do. I mean there's, like you said, you might be limiting yourself, you know, if you say, hey, it's for women only, or, you know, like you just said, a dad wants to get it for his daughter, you know, he only has her on the weekends and he wants to do something nice. Like there's all these different possibilities. So I almost look at that more as a business decision, because for the security stuff, I mean, man, it could be, there's a woman might give you just as much trouble as a guy would, where a guy might, he might want to hit on you. This woman might start hitting you literally, right? So it's hard to judge what it is, but I think that's kind of more of a business question, because you want to portray it as, you know, inclusive and doing it everyone. So you made a requirement, like, hey, you got to have at least 6 inches of hair on your head. Okay, so that's a good start right there, right? Yeah. And then it kind of goes into the safety protocols and procedures at the door. Like you have the dad that wants to get for a daughter. Oh, great. You're the one that filled out the form. All right, Bill, well, where's your daughter at? Let me meet her. And I'm still in the doorway. I haven't even taken a step inside yet. Oh, let's see her. I got to check this out real quick. I bet she's adorable. You know what I mean? Like those little things you can put in so that you don't fall into that trap. I don't know, Greg.
So let me do the other side. Brian, you do a great psychological side. Let me do the security side on this one. So here's what I would think, and just a couple of changes that you can make today that are free, that are just going to take a little bit of your time. One, why do they on a website have an I am not a robot? And you have to go through the little thing because they want to make sure they're not wasting time on somebody that's not going to be a serious client. And that costs a lot of money. You can't afford that. So you need to create on your site an I am not a robot. And a way to do that is something simple. Have a little, and remember, I'm doing the Greg thing. You have to interpret Greg's and make it your own. So I would have a little thermometer. Think about the little thermometer with the little mercury in red instead of in silver. And it's going up. So right under booking instructions, things that make us scared or things that bother us with a higher temperature. Number one, if you're gifting this, the person that's gifting it has to provide this information for us or we think it's scary. Next, don't walk out during the appointment because if you're the person that booked it, we're going to. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Just a couple, like a frequently asked questions thing that showed somebody like chewing their nails or their hair. Back to Brian's hair hub that failed. The idea is that if you think about it now and you have it right on there, right on your documents where somebody can see it, they're going to know that you're smarter than the average bear and you're thinking about those things, and it's not going to be insulting. But if you don't, reap the whirlwind. So don't come like, look, I'll get sued for this one, but it's how I really feel. You don't want people shooting people with a taser. And accidentally using their Glock. Stop making the taser look like a gun and wear it in a holster. And somebody's going to answer and go, yes, but they're yellow. You think your brain sees yellow when you're fighting for your life on the ground? Okay. So the same thing. When I go to your website, immediately when I go on booking, there's a smile and there's, hey, this is wonderful. If you're gifting this, here's the rule. If you're doing this, here's the rule. And remember, no alcohol. It scares the shit out of us or whatever. But have that on there where it's very easy to navigate. Now, if it's 5 or more things, they're going to forget. Okay, they're not going to pay attention. They're going to read it. But if it's 1 or 2 things that, like a safety thing in the corner, hey, if you're sick, don't call us because we don't want to be sick. Well, that's a common sense thing, but people don't think like that, do they? Come on. So
they're going to do the opposite. They're like, oh, I'm home sick. I might as well get my hair braided now.
I got COVID. What else do I got to do? But those type of things. And then I just thought of it because thinking of, how good looking I am on this thing. Why couldn't you take this call and have your folks, listen, you're going to do whatever you would call the group update, a team meet, and you're going to play certain parts of this, or force them all to listen to the whole thing. We don't know shit, but the idea is there may be something in there during the discussion that they would go, wow, it really opens their eyes. People don't understand that training differs from education. This is an education. What we're doing right now is training. We're talking about an idea. We're fleshing out and saying part task, and here's a practical application. And we would build a house and have your, uncle stand on the porch with a beer. Those are good ideas that we don't want to slip through the cracks that you can do for nothing or next to nothing that are going to make your people safer and make your business flourish. That's why we want to invest in your business. And the way we're investing is doing the thing that we do naturally. We're conducting training, right? I mean, I wish I had the money to invest because this has got legs. It's going places. But this is how Brian and I chose to invest. Brian spends most of his money on hash oil and booze. But today he got out of bed, put on a shirt, and hopefully he's helping out. I don't know.
Funny.
Oh, man.
Amazing.
Well, hey, think of this, too. Going back to the one about we advertise where we go. It just popped into my head. Shinzo Abe, former prime minister of Japan, one of the most popular people in Japan. Everybody loves him. Told everybody where he was going to be and went out and stood on a guardrail in between 2 busy streets and started orating. It was a great speech. He was doing wonderful, and he had security everywhere, and everybody knew he was going to be there. One guy with a homemade shotgun came up, missed him with the first shot, hit him with the second shot, and killed him. So are you going to one day walk out and have your security team fail? Yes. Are you going to one time book a thing in Long Beach and it turns out to be the same weekend as the KKK rally and you got a bunch of assholes surrounding you? Yeah. So the idea, though, good planning up front, good architecture up front will make those almost nothing. Wouldn't you agree, Brian?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about right now. Is you notice everything we're talking about is these are the pre-event things you can do beforehand. This is what you can talk about with your people and create some sort of standard operating procedure or protocols or policies that you can build off of that work for you. And then once you have it, once they start doing it that way, they'll never stop, right? And that's the idea is you build it in without people even realizing it. So I always look at it this way. I brought up the security and customer service. Good communication covers both of those things.
Thank you.
So
you're done, Emily. Who's next?
Tori.
So this question is there equipment that we should provide for our braiders or suggest they purchase, such as pepper spray or an alarm device? I personally, when I was braiding a lot, always had pepper spray on my keychain, and I feel it was a good, a lot of people noticed it, whether I said something or not. I usually put it in my kit so that it wasn't at their disposal, it was at my disposal. And I do think it was a lot of people noticed when I was putting it in. So I feel like that in itself was a deterrent for some
No,
people.
it can be. That's not unlike, putting the security alarm company sign out in your front lawn. I mean, even if you don't have that security company, if I'm some, guy just going around looking for a quick B&E to make a couple bucks, I will go to the next house because I don't want to risk it. Right. So the only thing we caution about is if you're going to use some sort of tool or weapon or pepper spray or knife or gun or something like that, you want to make sure you have training in how and when to use that. And also if you do things like that, I don't know how that works for your business. Will there be liability issues? Someone freaks out, or not even something uses it, meaning, yeah, I ripped this can of pepper spray and I dumped my stuff out. It fell on the ground. The pepper spray shoots out and hits the 3-year-old kid that's walking down in the kitchen when I'm doing this. Okay, now we have a lawsuit on our hands. So those things that we're always cautious about. We always look for non-material solutions, but those simple things can help, right? And so you kind of got to balance out what's the risk versus the reward. So we always just say, if you're going to use a tool, I need to be confident in my ability. So I need to be competent in it, right? I need to know how to use it and when to use it.
The backup would be, I used to say this personally to my mom, that there's quite a lot of spray solutions currently in our kit that would probably be potentially more harmful than what pepper spray would be.
Probably.
No, you're thinking right. And one, if you endorse something, then you have to provide training, and it increases your liability. So you also have to say what you don't endorse. While we endorse 2% oleoresin capsicum spray by this company, you must take this course and sign this waiver to carry it. It's just business 101. That's legal. Yeah. Part 2, if you're writing that sentence, get prepared to write the sentence. We do not authorize firearms or this or a knife or whatever else. And now you're saying, well, that seems dichotomous. No, it's not. If it's not in writing, you're going to get sued for it, and there's going to be liability. So if you're allowing the person their independent choice, make that clear. If you choose to do this, then you're not covered by an employee policy or this or that or the other. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And it could result in you being terminated or whatever. Whatever it is, take a minute, sit down, write it, and then call the free legal team of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe and say, hey, is this accurate? You're going to have to invest. You may have to invest a couple of bucks. So here is one that I'm giving you for free again. We all share a very, very close friend that I would take a bullet for, that I love to death, that used to work for a company called WRAP. And WRAP has a tool called the BOLA WRAP, which is a life-saving device for coppers that immediately stuns the person and immobilizes them for just long enough for you to get the hell out of there, for coppers to handcuff the person safely when they're acting out. You could probably get a guy like that person. I don't know if Brian's going to bring up his name or if it's more important for you ladies to bring it up. But you could tell him, hey, reach back to your contacts and tell him we want to conduct a limited objective experiment and have our personnel carry these items to improve their safety. That'd be a great study. You'd get the stuff for free. You're not encouraging the people to use it. As a matter of fact, a good tool like that may never be used. So the third and final thing I'll say about that, Brian, I don't know if we say the name, that's up to you, is Andrea. My daughter Andrea just made her PhD earlier in the year, teaches at Auburn. She was going to St. Anne's. Why? Because schools were like shit. Her best friend got shot in a school, so we thought putting her in a private school would lessen the impact. Andrea is one of the best martial artists I know. She did studying all the time. She's the laziest martial artist I know as well. So we knew that she was never going to do it because it meant her burning calories. So Shelly and I invested, and we got her around her neck this wonderful can of chemical aerosol spray. She emptied St. Anne's when during lunch hour decided to give everybody a class on how the chemical aerosol spray worked. She's the smartest kid I know. She's a PhD now, but that didn't mean she wasn't stupid and emptied out the whole school by spraying it in the cafeteria. You never know how somebody may use that item, and you don't want it being used against you. So this is one where I back off a little and I say, you may need to discuss this internally. Based on, like, if I was dealing with a room full of coppers, I would tell them to invest in pepper spray, because if your kid finds it in the middle of the night and sprays it in their mouth, they're not going to be dead like with a Glock 9 milli. You get what I'm saying? They'll just hate Mexican food for like the next 6 years, but they'll survive it. So this is a real business challenge for me more than a security challenge.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that makes sense. There's just more to think about with it.
Yeah, Tori, sorry. Yeah. We just gave you the universal sign language for no, we're not answering that completely. That's different than I got to pee.
Aside from the physical things then, we had a conversation while we asked them all for these concerns about potentially a
a tracking app like Life 360 or something like that? Do you guys have strong feelings towards those? Like even just quick yes or no, like whatever?
Yeah, you can. So I use Life 360 with the Insurgent, my little one who runs around. So I've got her phone on that, and we've all got it. But it's just
I have
which
it
is
too.
yeah, which is it's
That's
nice
great.
to have. But again, it's in that moment of you got to think about it. Does that work for your employees? Because you already know where they're going. You know where they're supposed to be. So I think
and one employee specifically said, yeah, I just don't know that if I was being kidnapped, if they'd let me take my phone along.
Right, exactly. So,
well, and you're going to get an employee that's going to call and say, hey, you're tracking me.
Yeah.
You want to find out where I am and how long I'm there. We know
that's
that.
what
right?
I thought. I'm like, they're not going to like that.
It's a privacy issue as well. And that's why I would just instill good communications procedures. Hey, I've arrived, like whoever scheduled it, or I don't know how you guys are organized with that in terms of how it comes down to that person. But if there's someone they're sending back to, hey, I've arrived. Hey, I'm here. Everything is good. And then, hey, now I'm leaving or I've left. I think instilling stuff like that in some sort of, if you had some operational control or way for them to check in, even if it was only electronically, there's a lot of options for that stuff out there. And even something as simple, because I know you guys, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, but the one thing you brought up about like phone numbers and stuff like that, if you're using, there's all kinds of different apps out there that you can use that'll hide your personal cell phone number that are literally only a couple bucks a month per person. I'll send you even an article with it. It's got a bunch of breakdown on some of the stuff, but those little things help because that's that layer of protection. Same thing with the checking in, checking out. I know that if it's been that hour and I haven't heard from that person, hey, I need to find out what's going on. And then you set it in, hey, if we don't hear from you within 15 minutes of your scheduled end time for your appointment, we're going to call you or we're going to reach out. And those are simple things that you can get in the habit of doing. And once people learn to do that, like I do that with my wife and my daughter, and Greg and I check in and out with everything you do, because you just build it into a plan. So now you're not waiting for that, man, we haven't heard from them in 2 days. It's like, no, we haven't heard from them in an hour and a half. So now we have, if there's something going on, we can intervene much sooner.
So three quick things. One, if anybody is watching this rather than just listening, it just dawned on me that if you take a look at Emily's background and Brian's background, they're identical.
Similar.
So those fuckers are in the same room. I don't know where you guys are, but that's the same Motel 6 with the same, look, the fire extinguisher, everything.
I mean, knock on the wall right over here.
Exactly. So second part is what you choose to share it at your own risk. Brian and I share every aspect of our lives, where we are on the road, when we go shopping, where we're going to be teaching and all that other stuff. So if you want to look at the Shelley scale, that would be the you asked for it. So when we get assaulted or somebody tries to mug us or serve us, we ask for it by putting it all out there. You don't have to do that. And you're going to get one of your employees that says, hey, listen, here's the company phone, but feel free to call me if something comes up and you want to tell me to do that, or this is more information about me or what I do. Listen, you are putting the small edge of the wedge into that conversation and opening it up Pandora's box for where it doesn't need to go. Stop that. That's another rehearsal thing. So this is business. It's not pleasure. It's going to be fun for both of us, and you're going to love your care, but I have to do what's best for my business and the safety of my employees. Set it out there. The earlier you set that out there, the less confusion there will be when you enforce a rule. And it's still creepy, the background. I'm just
and so you're going to see me. I'm going to walk through that door here.
I know. I'm expecting that any minute. So
no, and I do that same thing with kind of like I talked to my wife and daughter about that stuff too, is even like posting on social media. If you don't have to do it right now, don't. Like, even if it's just like, it's a cute photo, we're out to dinner with this, like, you can wait a couple hours. You can wait till tomorrow to post that. Be like, oh, are you guys there? I'm like, no, that was yesterday, man. And it's just a little bit of security for lag time, where if there were someone who wanted to do you harm or was following you in one of these situations, you're creating that gap. So that's just a good rule of thumb. Now, that might not always work in with some of the social media stuff you have to do for your business, but that's different. But if I keep to those little protocols of that, like I'll take a bunch of photos from the weekend and then I don't post them until Sunday night when I'm sitting around, and we already did that, right?
Exactly.
That little lag time. I know we all want to be instantaneous and share exactly where we're at and what we're doing, but just building in some time in there, it makes it more difficult for someone if they were to be tracking you.
If you want, establish a regional dispatcher and have your folks go through, check in, check out, all those things. If you can't do that, tell their loved ones you may want to invest in the LifeBit 360 for your loved one while they're on this job. I don't know what the hell the damn technology is called. And there's nothing wrong with let's say, Chelsea, you decide that Tori's on a call. She's actually out there braiding. And you call the client that booked it and said, hey, we know that Tori's there. How's she doing? She doing a good job? Yeah, we just conduct a random check. When they know that you're calling in and checking up on a person, wow, that's pretty powerful stuff. So if we always say that you want to make sure that you get the 360 approach, but every once in a while throw in some random check, a random safe word, something unusual that nobody else knows but your internal team. Brian and I have one of those. We have a safe word when we're together traveling, if you know what I'm saying. And we make sure that nobody else knows that because we don't want somebody to yell it out at a crowded party, right? But the idea is that that's something, again, look, somebody's listening and watching right now, and they're not sure what to do with their business. All these interventions that we've given you were free. We haven't given you one thing that you have to pay for. And you know that charging somebody for this advice, there's companies out there that are doing that right now. You're getting it by benefits of you asked the right questions at the right time, and we were able to get on a call with you. So I encourage anybody that's in your situation to think it out. Get a subject matter expert.
As we always say, you know, safe words work outside the bedroom as well.
Exactly.
And so you can build that in, like we always do that with different questions or something. I even do that with the insurgent, my little one, when she knows if we're out somewhere and she walks up and asks a certain question that there's something up and she doesn't want to create a scene and she needs some sort of, she just knows that I'm going to stop immediately what I'm doing and we're going to go ahead and talk and everything's going to be good. So you can build that in internally with your team on what that could mean and what that could do. And then we even do like hey, things are all good. Like we have hand and arm signals for stuff that we do. So if I give, you know, Greg, if I'm talking to someone and Greg looks over, make eye contact with me, I can give him a certain number, means all good, don't worry about it, we're just having a conversation. If I give him something else, it might mean, hey dude, I need some help in here. And it doesn't create a situation really, and we can kind of start to put some control measures in place without that individual knowing. And again, it does not have to be elaborate. Our stuff is very, very simple. It's certain numbers or certain hand signals, and that's it.
And safe words don't have to be elaborate either, because if your safe word is choke me harder, you might be in a trick bag. You get what I'm trying to say? You never know. And Brian, we learned that the hard way.
That's for a different episode.
Now slap me. That was the other safe word. That one doesn't work very well either.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I'm saying?
On an opposite end of that, I was going to say that in school, we used to have this, obviously everyone nowadays, it's awful, but you got to do the drills. And, you know, we had one called a Mr. Rush drill, and it would be called, and someone would come over the announcements and say, Mr. Rush is in the building. And that would be obviously everyone get under your desk or whatever. And a braider brought to our attention, maybe calling our client service department and saying like, hey, blank, a random name that we don't have, you know, just checking in, or like, it doesn't have to be anything, but that would mean like if you say, hey, this person that we don't have, it's more of a
that's emergency. A perfect thing that you could be, hey, hey, just notice I'm running low on this in my kit. Do we have those refills back in stock? But
remember context and relevance. I'll give you an example. So way back, Wayne, Oakland and Macomb Police Academy had this in Michigan, had this plan where if I saw a gun in the car while I was up on the passenger side and the driver couldn't see it, for example, I would say, hey, is Mr. Dinkle working today, or whatever this phrase was. That's horseshit. When you see a gun, you say gun, break contact, and start stepping back. Okay, so if it's a bona fide emergency based on your training and experience that you're teaching all the other ladies, and you say this word, that's the break contact word. When they see that, they know that's danger. If somebody does this, you know, the hey, be advised, because like if you had a school shooter, you know what? You don't say Mr. Belvedere's in the house. You say we got a fucking school shooter, everybody jump out a window or whatever. So I just want to make sure, Chelsea, your point is well taken.
Yeah.
But remember, context and relevance. Is this an emergency? If it's a bona fide emergency, this is our plan. And it's
like emergency versus uncomfortable. Emergency.
Yeah. And Brian's been with me so long now. He knows I'm a plain speak person. I'll bring up right in a conversation, hey, this is making me uncomfortable, because I don't want anybody's feelings hurt, because I'm such an empath. So I'll start right there. I'll say, okay, hey, we need to back up a minute. I'm feeling uncomfortable. Let's start over. My name's Greg. I'm here for whatever. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I can recalibrate, and then send that message out again without risking hurting anybody's feelings. And guess what? Some people, no matter what you do, their feelings are going to be hurt, and those shit humans don't need to be calling you back, right? Customer's not always right. Break contact early. I know people that bend over backwards to appease a person and spend a bunch of calories on a classic obstructionist that's only going to shit on them later on in life, right? So cut those losses early from a business standpoint. I think it's a good plan.
Well, I hope first of all, you guys have other questions or something else you want to bring up. I want to make sure I hit everything. So we got plenty of time.
I think we bored them to death.
Probably.
I think they're ready to go to lunch or
probably
something.
did, I'm sure. Well, yeah.
I am hungry.
There we go.
Wait, Chelsea, did you have one? I know you put something at the bottom there, but I don't know what that was though.
It was, I just was wondering, sometimes we've had the conversation, if something does happen, is it worth it for our client service team to reach out to them after the client and being like, I honestly don't know what it would say. Like, I don't have that written out yet, but just something saying like, this made this person uncomfortable or whatever. Just kind of your thoughts on that, I guess.
But listen, have a spectrum. Have a long spectrum that you've written down on a yellow pad and you all agree to. On the farthest right side or the furthest of the spectrum is notify the police immediately. You've been the victim of a crime. We enforce all criminal activities. Just left of that is the civil. Listen, you're open for civil liability because you attempted to do this, and we intend on following up with that. Closer towards the middle is, hey, we had an uncomfortable experience with one of our people, and we're not going to allow you to book a reservation again. Way over to the left, send somebody a fruit basket. Hey, we're sorry the person braided your hair. You know what I'm saying? And you look like a demented sewer rat. Here's us making up for it. I mean it, though. Think about that for a minute. If you have those clear standards set up front like that, like Brian and I follow up with some clients, we had a really good time with the client, and we want to go further with them. On some other clients, we did all the heavy lifting, and it was uphill both ways, and kiss my ass, we're not coming back.
And again, I always try to give, we have our different methods for dealing with it. Especially if it's something official with, work related, something business related. I always, email in detail, hey, I just want to make sure, this is what occurred, and I want you to know that, and just very clear up front, and you don't have to be mean or blunt about it. In fact, I try to give people like, I give people enough rope to hang themselves with is what I do, right? Because then they'll respond with, yeah, you know what, and I didn't like that. And you're like, okay, we don't have to deal with this person anymore. Or if they respond differently, like, oh no, it's okay, like, hey, they just got off to the wrong foot or something. There's usually, most of the time, there's a logical explanation for something.
Right, like putting the ball in their court, being like, hey, how did your appointment go today? And always, if they say something that triggers it, be like, our braider, we had heard that XYZ happened, and
because as you grow too, don't forget, there's a small percentage of people in every profession that are just assholes, and they're dragging society down. Doesn't matter what the profession is. So you will have someone who went in, like, you might call them and they're like, yeah, like they came in and they were swearing in front of my kids, and I asked them to stop, and they said, oh, what's, like, you might have someone on your end that you need to deal with.
Exactly.
So having that dialogue and that communication, it saves you as a business from future liability. It helps enhance the customer experience. It lets you right any wrongs. And I mean, you guys know that yes, you're braiding hair, so you have to be good at what you do. You have to deliver the product you said you would deliver, but what makes it successful is that experience and your customer service and how they were treated. I mean, that as a business.
Mm-hmm.
What sets you apart from the competition? Well, first of all, it's nuanced. Right now, you're new. You're novel. Is it always going to be that way? Nope. What are some of the possibilities? Somebody comes in and says, we love the idea so much, we're going to pay a bunch of money, and you all three decide, yeah, that's a great idea. We're going to pay Brian and Greg a large lump sum because they got us all professional and shit. Whatever. I'm just daydreaming now. I think
spitballing here.
Coffee's finally hit. Huffing the paint earlier. But the idea is that you also have to think there's going to be a certain amount of society that's going to try to compete with you and says it's just hair braiding. How hard can it be? You know what sets you apart from the competition? The hour we just spent talking about this. The countless hours that you spent between this conversation and our last one, and paying it forward when you're getting together and going, wow, we have a whole yellow page of ideas that we need to talk and think about. That's what's going to set you apart and make you safer, smarter, and make you more money.
And Greg, we could be, if they're Braid Babes, we could be Braid Bros. And where they refer people to, nah, you know what, you're not a right client for us. You're perfect for Braid Bros. Oh yeah, they're good. No, they suck, but they're going to
standards are horrible, and they have no idea what they're doing, but they're available.
But since you gave us a hard time, they're going to come in and tell you about it.
They've got a clear slate. Exactly. I still like Hair Hub, where you just go around and randomly collect hair from people's houses. That's kind of an odd thing that you would do.
Well, that's probably illegal, and a number of things kind of.
No, they have to welcome you over, Brian.
Oh, okay. Like they're letting
I get it now.
Collect their hair. That seems odd. I don't know if I want to do that. Professional hair doll making. I don't know. Can you do that?
So here's one thing I want to throw in, Brian. I absolutely enjoyed your website. I think that a couple of modifications by adding, rules and things on there, I don't think that's going to hurt anybody. Absolutely love the photo. Some charlatan that does parlor tricks is going to tell you, no, don't put those photos on because the ladies that are on there look provocative. They don't look provocative. They're women. Blow me. The idea is that you guys have the right to put that on there, but put your boundaries on there right up front too. The other thing is put somewhere our good friend, put a shout out to him because we love him, or at least call him and tell him this was a good idea. I'm telling you that based solely on the strength of this, you would get a bump in our podcast by 60 if you force your people to watch them, and then have some other people think about it too. This could be a thing that's good for your business. We totally believe in it. That's why we're on here. Well, Brian and I have never endorsed anything ever. I know 2 books that we've endorsed, Brian. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And maybe some training event that we've endorsed, but we've never been behind something like this. And the reason is 2. 1, our dear close mutual friend, and 2, that you guys planned on doing it right and held us to task for this podcast.
We love seeing a company like this that really wants to do that right up front, and it's huge. And this is, you're facing stuff that we were doing a program in Afghanistan, training, U.S. soldiers, sailors, Marines, to identify insider threats, meaning they were training Afghan counterparts that one of those people would come in and kill them, try to kill them or have an attack, right? So that's insider threat. But while this is happening, we had someone from that organization ask one of the big base commanders there, and he's like, this is in the middle of a war. We're fighting against the Taliban, right? Go, what's your, what keeps you up at night? And you know what his answer was? Sexual assault on this base. And you're just like, holy crap. So you think about what all the trillions of dollars and billions spent on what we're doing and fighting. And the guy on the ground or girl on the ground says, you know what the biggest problem we have here is this thing over here. And so, people don't realize that insider threat sort of is huge. And I just use that as an example. So when we see someone like yourself going like, hey, this is my number one priority. It's safety, safety, safety. You're going to build that culture and you're going to mitigate a whole bunch of bad things from happening simply by giving everyone the confidence to know that, hey, we're going to get taken care of here and we're going to give the best tools possible. So we love seeing that. Anything we can do to support.
That's why we were super excited about it, is because and when we had the intro from our mutual friend, it was just exciting because we were doing things like self-defense classes and things like that. But that really is like the 1% of the time that our braiders would actually probably physically have to fight somebody. So like getting ahead of it, and like your website, it was just so like, Emily had asked me to like grab like a snippet like of your website and kind of what you guys were about, and I just like, it was like this long. I couldn't narrow it down because everything that you guys were writing.
That's a picture of my head. That's
exactly this is exactly what we want. We wanted to get ahead of it. We wanted to make our employees comfortable, and we will be sharing this with every employee we have now, but also like we mentioned to you guys, it will be part of our onboarding so that they can have this ahead of time, and we don't have to have these like conversations every time something, God forbid, bad happened. And our team is super excited about it too. When we were posting these questions and having them answer it for us, they were like, wow, a lot of these things people are saying we didn't even think about. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, and we're really excited you guys are doing this. So like our team's really excited.
Chelsea, know that we can do web-based stuff. We want to continue the relationship. We don't want it just to be this podcast, which is opaque again in general. We want it to be detailed and laser focused. But I want to point to something, okay? buying a gun and going out and doing gun training and getting a SWAT team and doing all those things, those are necessary evils. But did it stop any school shooter yet? No. And that school shooter is in their late teens or 20s and been acting out the entire time, and nobody did anything. So the idea of thinking that you're going to be able to solve those problems just by increasing the posture of security is ridiculous. You have to do tangible things. You have to do them every day. You have to hold your folks accountable. You have to think ahead of the problem and to stay left of it. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you guys are doing everything right, and we hugely endorse your approach. Just make sure, please, the worst mistake somebody can do in any of our training, anything for first responders, police, military, is take the training and go, that was a good training event, and then leave, and just leave it collecting dust on a shelf. You got to do something, and I mean do something today. Second thing is, let's collaborate on something. I end every show that I talk to, let's put something together where over the next year, we all get together in an event, and Brian and I are training the brains, and you're braiding the hair.
Greg is cool like just determined to have one of you braid my hair. I'm
you know why, Marin? Because I think if they dig deep enough, there's some hidden treasure in there.
There's something
in
there.
I think they're going to find that secret. There's a Lindbergh baby kidnapping. Some evidence.
Something's in there. Something's going to fall out. Who knows?
One day he's going to wash that son of a bitch and find out he's a twin. You know, I mean, it's going to be something that odd.
So that's Greg's big reason for us getting together. Exactly. Is he just wants to see someone braid my hair. Now. Well, he thinks it's like funny, like, oh, he's gonna make fun of me. I'm like, I have no problem. I'll get up in front of an audience with hair braid. Like, it's not gonna bother me.
I want to be on the Braid Babes board. You know why? Because I see that this has got legs and it's going places, and I want to be able.
I know my wife wants to start one out here. She's like, "Can we get it going out here in San Diego?" She said she was in the beauty industry. She used to work for Unite. She's got friends in that stuff. So like,
your business plan is so simple. If somebody doesn't invest, they're an idiot. And Brian, are we going to bring up Clark Deaver's name and thank him for this, or are we going to keep that a secret the entire time?
I think you just did.
Oh, did I? Okay. Well, what's legal say on that? What's our legal scale?
No, Clark, we appreciate our mutual friend Clark for putting this together. He's so far introduced us to some amazing people, you all included. Like,
and a couple of really odd ones.
Yeah, well,
just so you know,
there's always that percentage in there. You never know.
Is.
So, yeah, that's more him. Yeah.
He's been my #1 mentor and advisor for 3 years now. We meet more than once every week for 3 years.
Yep.
That's amazing.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you right now, when you meet
guy.
smart, motivational people in your life, you got to hold them and hug them and take care of them, because those coaches and mentors, listen, hiring somebody that is going to give you somebody else's quote and then take you to goat yoga and give you a smoothie, that's not moving shit ahead. You'll find out 10 years from now that you wasted time. Investing in a smart person like that and sitting down and asking the hard questions, man, Clark is that person. And this type of call, just so you know, this is a business call that's turned into a podcast. This is smart thinking. So pay it forward. Use this information to save a life or make somebody harder to kidnap or kill.
Yeah, I had to tell Greg that we were invoicing you after this. So sorry to tell you this, Greg. No, this was just a free podcast we were doing.
But I'm still hungry. Were we talking about food?
So, so Emily, Tori, Chelsea, thank you girls so much for coming on. It's awesome. I've always wanted to do kind of a show like this in general, where almost like a guest host type thing, because one, it helps our listeners know more. I get to find out what people are thinking. It takes it outside what we typically do, but even though you're in an industry it has so many other different similarities to other industries, and that model is not going away. It's growing, right? People are like, you know what, F this, I'm not leaving my house anymore. You come to me, right? So we do appreciate you and your time and coming on and asking us these great questions. You also obviously have my contact info in ours. So if there's anything you need to reach up, we'll follow up. Hopefully I can get this thing out here next week. But thank you girls so much for coming on the show, and just hang on 1 second after we're done. But any last words from anyone else before I close out?
No, just thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Come on.
Thanks for coming on, and to our listeners, thank you for listening. And we have more on the Patreon side, and don't forget that training changes behavior.